Welcome to Let's Talk Careers. I am so excited to be joined by Paul Gill, who is going to be talking to me this morning about being a social entrepreneur. Welcome, Paul. It's so great to have you with me here today.
Thanks, Maria, for having me.
I'm so excited for this conversation. I know that we've already had a conversation with our young graduates in June of 2021, but today's a really special one because we are going to be talking about your experiences with understanding some of the red flags that you might have faced on your career journey, and also some of the benefits and, of course, challenges that you face as a social entrepreneur. And what I'm really excited about with your experiences, Paul, is that you are walking the talk as opposed to just saying, people should be doing more of these things. And what I believe really sums up what I understand about the work that you do is that you found a purpose in your career, and you spend your everyday not only living up to that purpose, but also encouraging others to become consciously aware of the presence that they play in their careers. So, Paul, welcome to the platform. We are going to be sharing this recording with our students at Dubai English Speaking College and our community. Thank you for joining me. How are you feeling today? It's beautiful Cambodia.
I am feeling good. Thank you, Maria. And I'm speaking to you from the village where I live. I must apologize if you hear some roosters and dogs and some Cambodian music, but here you get all the real experience. So I'm feeling good. Thank you.
I think that's exciting that you're in Cambodia right now and we're still able to have this conversation. But Paul, I know that you haven't always been in Cambodia. So before we move forward on today's conversation, please share with us what you were doing before and how you ended up in this beautiful place called Cambodia.
Yeah, this is a very interesting journey. So my background is I was born in India. I grew up in Canada and studied civil engineering. Like most of us, uh, we are in pursuit of so-called success. So we all, as humans, are looking for success, which we define in different ways. And I was on that journey, and that I was doing different things on that path. So I had started a few businesses. That wasn't making me fulfilled. So I moved to corporate career and moved to UK, where I work in a multinational corporation in different roles, from product management to marketing management. And what I found around 2009, I reached this point where I was doing very well in my professional career. I was surrounded by some amazing people. However, I wasn't feeling fulfilled. There was something missing. And this is what got me into this pursuit of asking a question, why I'm not feeling fulfilled. While I have the most privileged life, then I'm actually in the 10% of the people who live in this world, who have everything they need, but we are still unfulfilled. So that's how I start to ask myself questions. And that's what led me to, when you ask questions, of course, that's when the student is ready, that's what they say, the teacher appears. And that's when I stumbled across what I'm doing now. So I wasn't always looking for this opportunity, what I'm doing now. But as soon as I start to ask these questions, it came my way.
It's really interesting that you say that you weren't feeling fulfilled, but you had privilege, and the privilege of the experiences, and of course the material benefits of having that privilege. In hearing you talk about this as a careers practitioner, it's not uncommon, the comment that you just made about that awareness that you came to. I think what really strikes me as inspiring when we're thinking about your experience is that you didn't just sit there in that feeling and buy more things to help you kind of put a bandage on that feeling of unfulfillment, you actually took real action and made big changes in your life. I know some critics might say, yeah, but you know how you probably had the monetary resources to do that. Not everybody could do that. I have responsibilities. Other critics might say, well, that was a really, you know, you're living a holiday life by, you know, escaping the realities of the Western world and the experiences and pressures of career. And still others might be envious and wondering, well, I don't know if I have the courage to do that. What were some of the experiences from people in your surroundings, Paul, when you made that decision and said, you know what, I'm just doing this?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, all of that is true what you said. It's different people have different perceptions of this path. Personally speaking, I I must say that I had tried all these things, and it was really painful experience to me. Like, it was not really being unfulfilled, going back to your apartment and not feeling pumped up while you are actually outside pretending to be. It was, to me, that's what was driving me. And when I decided to do that, you can call that I was really fortunate. I had some great friends, uh, especially two of my friends who were very close to me. I shared this experience with me. Actually, let me just step back a little bit. What triggered that? I was in South Africa in a shanty town. Uh, in Through my MBA business trip, and I met this amazing lady named Vicky who lived in the middle of this township called Kailisha, and she was probably one of the most happiest people I ever met. Very inspiring, and she had transformed the community around this. And if you know a little bit about townships, these are very poor places to live, very harsh conditions. But that really actually gave me this question: why is she so happy, right? And she had a school, she had this um, handicraft workshop. And when I came back, I shared it with two of my friends, and one of them, Chris, another friend, Kiva. And I shared this feeling that there is misalignment between what we're doing. And these two best friends said, what you gonna do? And I expressed what my plan was, which was inspired by Nobel Prize laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus. When I shared this idea with them, they were the ones who actually pushed me. So actually, they said, "You must do that. We are surrounded by so many people who are living this life, and who would you like to be like? Right? Who is your role model?" And I looked around. I said, "None of these people." My role model is Vicky sitting in township of Kalisha, or Professor Muhammad Yunus. And that's why it was a tough choice, I must say. But actually, really, you need your best friends actually saying, yeah, you must do it. And that's what helped me.
So would you say that now that you've done it and you've done it for a number of years, when you look back at the life that you were leading before, do you look back at it and say, I really miss parts of it? Or do you look back at it and say, I'm really grateful to that person because that person led me to who I am today, and the experiences that I had in my past career really guided me towards the purpose that I'm fulfilling right now in Cambodia?
Yeah, I have no regrets. I will never go back to what I was doing. So this is first thing. And thanks to basically my mentors and my best friends. So I must say that it's just that unknown that we don't know about. These are the choices that I was not aware of, the idea of social business. So if you knew there was something that's amazing, which doesn't really destroy the planet and care about humans, and it's self-sustaining, and it can grow into something very large and can have huge impact, and you have the skill set to do it, why wouldn't you do that, right? So, and then if you had uh, opportunity to do that in your own time. So if you had perfect freedom, so to answer your question, I'm so glad that I made that decision. It was a tough one, but uh, that's why I share this with other people, because most of the people don't know if there is another path than corporate life or non-profit life.
In also in reflecting and some of the conversations that we've had in the past, another thing that I've really come to appreciate by learning about your experiences as a practitioner helping the youth is it really makes sense for me in practice why it is so very important that educators and career practitioners and parents remind young people that experiences are never, they're never mistakes, they're just experiences. And this idea that young people have that they need to get it right to 16 years old and figure out what they want to be doing in that career. When I meet individuals like yourself, Paul, and I listen to the career stories, I understand that every path leads us to the next opportunity. Now, would you say that you would have been prepared for the world and the experiences that you are living right now if you hadn't gone through your previous experiences? Or do you believe that you have brought to this experience in Cambodia skill and knowledge and wisdom that you needed to gain in your previous career?
Yeah, that's a very deep question. And I must say, I think if I look back, and it's so easy to, you know, look back and really reflect on what your journey has been. And I do that a lot. And I go back all the way when I was 2 years old, and I write a lot. And when I look back, I can see each experience, like, what I did, what I studied, the people I met, the pain I went through, or pleasures I went through. All these things were the stepping stones and very, very valuable lessons, which added. We are just not aware of these things, and we don't keep record of this. So to me, everything that I have done, whether it's uh, consciously or unconsciously, has added to what I'm doing today. And it just basically in a real practical life, especially the kind of work I am doing, it comes really no business school or education system alone can teach you, right? So all these life experiences, good or bad, they are there for a reason, in my view, because now I apply these things. So absolutely, I would say if I didn't have these experiences, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing.
Brilliant. Now let's bring into context what you are doing. I know I'm really realizing that we haven't really informed our audience about what you are doing. And I actually did that purposely because I wanted them to come on a little journey of how you made the decision to become a social entrepreneur. So Paul, bring us into context. Tell us what you're doing in Cambodia and what the objective of the work that you're doing is all about and how it aligns with what you call a purpose.
Yeah, so I think I can go back to where it started. So, like I said, I was working in the UK, asking this really deep question about why I'm not fulfilled, and that's in 2009 I came across this gentleman, Nobel Prize laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus, and I heard him talk about this new concept that I never heard of called social business. And this idea was very intriguing to me. So I can explain a little bit later what is social business. But when he said that there is this new model of called social business, by applying that model, he had transformed the life of nearly 9 million people. And that inspired me. So I really then said, okay, I need to learn from this man. And that's what I did. And so I started to follow. Actually, I have his book. I'm holding it here. It stays with me. So it's called Starting a Social Business. So I started to read into that, and I just basically start to learn. And that's what I've been doing. So I am actually a social entrepreneur. So you can call it social entrepreneur or a social business person, which basically means it's solving all the world's most pressing problems, such as poverty, hunger, lack of education, human rights, healthcare, all these pressing issues by applying this model through business. And social entrepreneur, in nutshell, is a person who is actually an entrepreneur whose focus has expanded from just self-centered to a larger community. For Eunice, it was 9 million people. For me, I said like, wow, this is so that's what social entrepreneurship to me is. So being an entrepreneur who is focused on large scale problems, and it's not just about small group of people. So that's what I've been doing. So I decided to do that in Cambodia because Cambodia had a huge need because 75% of the people live here under the under $1.50 a day. So that's where I've been doing, applying this model to solve these problems. And our main focus is basically root cause of many problems, which is poverty. So that's what I focus on.
It's very interesting that you chose Cambodia. I mean, of every country in the world, was there a deeper connection to Cambodia other than, you know, the terrible number of poverty cases in Cambodia? How did you choose Cambodia instead of another part of the world?
You can call it this real pure synchronicity, or you can call it pure accident. But I was in Cambodia first time through a corporate social responsibility program through my corporation. That means I came to apply a model of which is let's spend some money in these poor countries, build a school, and that will change the life of many people. And that to me was turning point. I saw this was really wrong approach. It was very disempowering, and many people had done that already. So that's why when I was in Cambodia on the ground, I saw total different story. I just really then thought, wow, this is, I come to Cambodia to do something that's good, but it's not going to do really any good in the longer term. So that's what really made me feel a little bit guilty, to be honest. So I thought like, what am I doing here? And so the family I was staying with, they had expressed all the deeper issues, how complex the sustainable development is. And when I learned from that, so I said, this is a perfect place, because I had met this family who wanted to make this change in their community, in their village. And I had a mentor who had done it at a large scale. That's how I actually ended up with living with this family and moving to Cambodia.
Brilliant. So what do you do from day to day? What is the thing that you're doing? And how do you know that it's creating long-term change for the betterment of the people that you're supporting?
So our model is well known now. It's basically an eco-village concept, which means creating a community which is sustainable on all four levels, which is basically economy, ecology, culture, and social. And these are four elements. So it's fixing all these four issues. It's a holistic approach, and doing it through business. So what we do in the business, in the village, is basically we starting from growing things, basically in a permaculture or organic manner. We take these products and create some value-added products so that they are much higher value, and they are there's a demand for these products in the market, and that's all done by hand in the village, from growing to making these products. And then we take these products and market around the world and bring 100% of that profit back to the village, so that it can be then applied to more such projects. So my day-to-day thing is basically identifying what we call the change makers, who are the village people who want to really change their life and their communities. and then bringing them on board to this, our family of entrepreneurs, so that one village can then be multiplied into multiple villages.
So I want to bring it into the perspective of a young person or an educator teaching young people. Just kind of recapping some of the things you said, Paul, being a social entrepreneur is an entrepreneur, except the focus is not on looking for profits for a product or a service. It's about helping a larger audience of people with a need, such as the one that you identified in Cambodia, in terms of poverty and empowering the people to become self-sufficient. The key skills that I understand that you're taking are the same skills that an entrepreneur in any type of organization would need to be taking. So you looked at the long-term value, you looked at sustainability, you looked at how the service that you're providing will generate an income that can then come back into the country and support the people of the village to continue producing. My question, and I know that this would be the question that a young person learning about entrepreneurship and business would be, well, where does Paul make an income? How do you become financially sustainable? You know, and I mean, no disrespect to the bigger purpose, but I think it's important for young people to understand that people working on missions such as yours are also people that have responsibilities and expenses to fulfill. So how does Paul become financially independent and feel like he is also able to keep giving? Because we know that finances are a very important part of being sustainable in our business as well. Am I correct, Paul?
Absolutely, and that's really a very important question, especially if you had to make a choice. What should we do? So let me just actually break it down in the way I see. So there are two types of paths normally we take. One is for profit, so which you can call it corporate sector, whether you start your own business or you work with a corporation, and you make products and services which people need. So this first kind of business, which is private profit making business, is focusing on making maximum profit for the shareholders of this company, still delivering products and services that people need, whether it's fashion, whether it's making cars or whatever. And this sector is very well known, and it attracts all the best talent from all the top universities, and it's very well paid profession. So that's what drives most of the people who are like growing up, and we aspire to go into this sector. And the second part of the solving the problems or delivering products and needs and services is done by non-profit sector, which you can call it either it's governments or charities on aid. And that depends on volunteers, and that depends on grants. So, and they take the money, they have the volunteers who work, like you said, not getting paid, and they run out of money end of the year, and then they raise more funds. However, this is what I love about social business. Social business is basically only difference between private or profit-making businesses. It doesn't focus on only the shareholders. All the profit we make is evenly distributed, fairly distributed to all the stakeholders, which means all the people who are involved in the business. That includes me. So, and that's the beauty of this project or business model. It's highly rewarding, but it's not also going as a volunteer. So you can we make the products, and there is a wholesale price of these products, just for example, that goes to the village. And then we retail these products. For example, right now we are in Dubai at the expo, and that's actually direct retail. So there is more profit which comes into our company. So that profit is equally distributed or fairly distributed to all people who are involved. So this is why I could survive without any grants and external help. So our own profit goes to all the people, not just few shareholders. That's the difference.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute, if that's okay with you. I think a great conversation is always looking at all perspectives, including the voice of the critics. So in hearing you speak, what I'm understanding is shareholders are still making a profit. How much then comes back to the village if you are still having to give profits to shareholders? Are the villagers in fact gaining enough? I mean, I understand the equality of everybody gets an equal share. But if we go back to the purpose of social entrepreneurship, if the main purpose is to consider the needs of the larger audience and really honing in on social causes such as poverty, how are shareholders being made accountable to the differences between a profit making for the source of profit and social projects such as yours for the larger purpose of providing assistance in social causes?
So the difference is actually everyone who is involved in the social business is a shareholder, which is not the case in profit making business. So you have employees and you work for the company and get paid salary. In social business model or social entrepreneurship model, there are different models, but our model is everyone who is working within our ecosystem is an entrepreneur or a shareholder. So this is not that only there are 4 shareholders for this business. No, we have more than 150 shareholders. So these are the artisans and entrepreneurs who are involved in decision making and pricing and everything. So it's a total transparent system. So that's what I mean. We don't call them shareholders. That's why this is called, it's a stakeholder model. So they may be just a family of entrepreneur who is working with us. But that's also considered as a stakeholder because this person has a direct influence on the village. So that's all the money that we are making, and I'm one of these 150 stakeholders. And together we decide who is getting paid what, right? So that's what I mean. It's a complete different model. It's not there's a higher price for the management and there's very little for the people who are making the scarves, for example. So that's what the big difference is.
Okay, let's talk a little more about how an educator can prepare a young person for a role such as yourself. So, sitting right now in a classroom will be business students and students interested in entrepreneurship, and they'll be thinking about what they want to be doing. How can they prepare to become a social entrepreneur? What are some of the skills that they should be developing that might not be the skills that they expect will be required of them?
Yeah, I think we have a very good example here, and we've been working with this academy in the US called SCH Academy. And so for the last 5 years, we've been working with them. And so to answer your question is the best way to actually, introduce this idea or model to the young people is introducing into their learning from a very young age, because they are not aware of that there's such model. And with this academy, what we did is we developed introducing entrepreneurship or social entrepreneurship into the classroom from at the age of 12 or 13, right? And then what we discussed and came up with the idea is, because if you just talk about it in the classroom, it doesn't give that experience that is needed. So what is needed is to actually immerse yourself into some of the real projects and experiences. So, and there are many now. So we are so fortunate. So there is a great example of Kiva.org, world's largest crowdfunding platform dedicated to social business. So, and Ushahidi, it's another platform which is basically amazing platform. And so, and then if possible, to go visit these projects. So like this SCH Academy students, they come to spend the time with us and we work together with them. So I would say first is the introduction of the idea of this, there is this model, and making people aware of what are the greatest examples of social business. And like I said, there are many, Grameen, Kiva.org, So there are thousands of very large scale and small scale social businesses, which are very, very interesting. So if one thing will be to introduce that idea, and then if possible, to actually immerse, yourself into that, or the students into that project, and taking it a little bit longer term view. So whether doing it over 6 months or the entire year, working some sort of participation or product development, which SCH Academy does it for us. So I think that's very, very um, powerful way. What it does is actually really everyone is learning the hard skills that we talk about needed for the business. What is actually really missing is we are not really aware of how the rest of the world works. So these are the softer skills, which is basically compassion, empathy, connecting with people across cultures without language that we don't speak. And all these things are so important for day-to-day life, but also for business. And that, in my view, can be only learned if you immerse yourself into that environment. So that's what I would say.
Amazing. So introduce the concept and try to create opportunities for young people to immerse themselves in those surroundings. In my conversations with young people, when we're talking about preparing for future career aspirations and doing that discovery process, or when I'm having conversations with career practitioners, one of the focuses is on how do we best prepare young people to begin dreaming up their future career aspirations. And we have different camps. We've got a camp that says, make them follow the university path regardless and just take those traditional subjects. We have another camp of practitioners who would say, you know what, we didn't know what we were doing. Nobody knew at 16. Why are we putting this kind of pressure? Just let them be. And then we have another camp, which I believe would be probably the camp that I like to spend most of my time with, and saying, it's our role as practitioners to let young people become aware of opportunities. It's not about pinning them down to a job. It's about helping them to discover. And I don't believe what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm a real believer of what kind of transferable skills can a young person be developing to help them adapt to the circumstances that may arise. Now, one of the things that comes up really a paramount in conversations I have is we don't just want a job. We really want to feel like we're connecting to our work. In knowing this, do you see that kind of a trend with young people that do come through your doors, that there will be more of a focus on social businesses in the future, or do you still see the traditional, no, it's really going to be about consumerism and creating more businesses for products and services to just kind of generate an income unconsciously?
Well, in my view, I have no doubt this has been in the making for 25 years, the concept of social business. It's not new, but we are just coming to know it. It's becoming mainstream, and we have no choice. And the current situation has actually shown us that the world is highly unsustainable. We as humans have become very fragile, and 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 we cannot run the businesses we used to run. So there is absolutely, in my view, there is an emerging trend, and a lot of young people actually. I'm I work with many young people locally here and abroad, and I am fascinated how curious they are about other options. So this is actually becoming very attractive to young people because they see how the world is changing, and this is what driving businesses, actually even the profit-making businesses, it's forcing them to adapt this holistic approach. There is no business in the future if you are not caring about the planet and people who work with you, and it's unsustainable. Consumer is no longer willing to buy in these products and services. So it's because we are hyper connected and information is there, which wasn't there before 10 years ago. So that is changing the landscape of businesses going forward. And that is also driving the trends for talent development. So it's a new age of talents. As we go into AI and robotics, there is a different need emerging. So in my view, absolutely, there is no doubt in my mind that social business is going to grow. It may not be called social business, and it could be called conscious business or something. But it's already growing at a scale that's unimaginable.
I know that we were talking about this right at the beginning, some of the benefits that you're facing right now is a life of purpose or feeling. Do you feel now that fulfillment that you were really hungry for when you began this journey? Do you think like, yeah, I made it, I'm here. I really feel that this is what I want to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing is it takes a little bit time, and first 4 years were tough, but after that, the results are obvious, and you feel the day-to-day fulfillment in work. It's also the freedom to make the choice rather than just doing boring work and filling reports and all that stuff. So you're very direct in touch with other human beings where you see the impact right away, which is very, very fulfilling. So usually we don't see the impact of what we do sometime for a long, long time. But this is here in this field of social business, you see that, and it's magnified because the people you work with, if you working with a family who lives on less than $2 a day, and that family start to make, just imagine, $5, this is 100% growth, and that's very much reflected into their day-to-day quality of life and all these things. So it's highly fulfilling for sure, and I feel it. Another thing I just want to add is it comes with the challenges that are totally new every day, which is, to me, is actually where the fulfillment comes from. So once you actually start to welcome this unknown challenges, and you develop this ability to solve these problems without looking at a textbook, which is a skill that you develop when you're doing this is really, it's hard to describe, but this is like then you are writing your own codes. So it's not like, oh, I learned this in the past. So this is very situational leadership, which to me is very, I sometimes don't have the answer because this challenge is so new. It just emerged. So that keeps me highly motivated, but I'm looking forward to waking up and saying like, yes, what is the challenge today? Which wasn't the case before.
And how welcoming were the people of Cambodia when you kind of camped out and said, "Hey, I'm here. I've left the corporate world and I want to come here and make an impact." Were they receptive, or when you reflect on those moments, did you see pockets of spaces where they were reluctant to embrace what you were offering?
Yeah, it's first of all, actually, my approach was through my mentors. It wasn't really the approach saying, okay, go there and change the world. And I am a big believer, and he taught me that really change starts with you. So go there. And because I had identified this gap, why are these people living, on less than $2 a day are so happy? And I am making, very good living, and I'm not fulfilled. So that was my identification of this hidden talent in these people. So my mentor actually says that all humans have equal talent. They may not have the equal opportunities. So he said, go identify that amazingness in the people. When you start to look for it, you will start to find it and learn from them. So I came here actually say, teach me how to be fulfilled. They didn't have any idea. They say like, wow, someone is coming to learn from us. So I didn't come to actually make impact on them. I say it's the exchange. How can I learn to become more fulfilled? And in exchange, I don't want to be just taker. How can I be giver? And what is that exchange that I can do with them? So what skills I have that I can bring onto the table? So they were very welcoming, saying, come stay with us. And that's where I've been living for 8.5 years. Uh, on the top, they were very surprised with this approach. They were saying, okay, a lot of charity and these NGOs come and they said, let me show you how to do these things. So it was totally new air, new experience for them. And for that reason, they were really like, they became my host, right? And I was just spending time with them, like living with the family. And that's how I identified what skills I have that actually can add value to them while I'm learning this from them.
So I'm listening to you and I find this so interesting. And I hope there's a young person watching this right now also thinking, hold on a minute, I'm trying to connect the dots and I'm wondering what was different about your approach as opposed to somebody leaving their, a place of employment and going to find themselves and find fulfillment. I mean, where in that equation did you start to have financial sustainability for yourself, or did you go with a nest egg and you were living on that nest egg and you knew that you had so much time? I think this is important, Paul, because what we want our young people to understand that this is a very respected career and it wasn't a vacation. So how you said it was challenging at the beginning, but where in that equation did you start to relax, knowing that you could financially sustain yourself through this venture?
And that's very, very important. Like you said, this actually hinders a lot of people jumping into the social business because it's considered as very risky, or actually non-profit sector is actually not very attractive for that reason. However, because it's a mixture of business models and then these other skills that you need, which is basically which takes this out of out of the equation, which is basically all humans are equally talented. And so for me, I had done all the prep work for business model stuff, so which was basically calculating all these things. How can we actually reach financial sustainability? And this part of mentorship on the social business framework, which is available, and it takes out that risk, which is there for a lot of people will have that question: how would I actually survive financially? How do I actually have the investment? How do I pay myself? All these things are part of the social business, normal business model development. So that I had done. Only variable in that model was I had never done in this kind of implementation of business model into this unknown culture or environment, which needed further skill development and building this trust between the people who will be involved in this. And so that was the period when I was fearful, because I didn't have these skills at that time. And I was learning that. And because when you go into this learning mode, you actually feel very relaxed, although you have responsibility, but you also feel like I'm learning because I need these skills to go for, to reach the sustainability or success. So you don't just jump in, because that will be too risky, especially for a talented person. And you could ask, this will be if you calculate the opportunity cost, it will be unwise to do that, right? So I had done that, and I knew that it may take few years. What's the worst case scenario? And I didn't have much doubt about it because of the mentorship. So I would say, once you take that path, you need mentors who've been there, who has done that before. So that's why if I would have jumped in with just perfect business model, missing out these soft skills, I would have probably failed and created a negative impact.
Wonderful. I could talk to you forever, Paul, but I'm very conscious of your time. Paul, how can we find you if we're interested in Sonus World and the work that you're doing in Cambodia? I know that we can go out to the Dubai Expo currently and visit at the Cambodia Pavilion, but where could we find you on social channels?
Yeah, we are on all social channels, but our website, sonas.org, has all the information about what we do, how can you get involved, and that will be the best source. And you can also find me on LinkedIn and or Facebook and Instagram under Sonas Word. So that will be the best choice to find us. And like you said, we are right now at Dubai Expo under the Cambodian Pavilion, and all our products are displayed there. It's a great place to see what kind of work we do.
Amazing. So just to recap, www.sonusworld.org.
www.sonas.org.
Sonus.org. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Paul. It was such a pleasure, as always, having this conversation. I know that I'm walking away with more of an insight to being a social entrepreneur and how to prepare the youth for the world of social entrepreneurship. Definitely so much more to be learning. And I know that you had a book. Can you show us that book one more time for anyone interested? Muhammad Yunus, Building Social Business. On a scale from 1 to 10, how valuable was that book for you along that journey? 10 being absolutely couldn't live without it, 1 being not so much.
Definitely 10. This is a book that actually really got me on this path, and I use what's in this book to build this business. So this exactly is a social business builder manual.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for being here. And thank you, everybody, for watching. This wraps up another incredible conversation. Today, we were speaking with Paul Gill, who is a social entrepreneur currently working in Cambodia. And you can find him at www.sonus.world. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you when we bring another incredible guest to Desk Careers and our digital spotlights.